What's going on, my fellow history lovers? Welcome back to another video this week. As you guys probably saw earlier this week, I did a video on one of the first black powder weapons, the fire lance. It was a quick minute short. I figured I would actually just do a little bit more of an in-depth look at this fire lance because that was just a brief history of it. So today we're going to go into the first black powder weapon that I could find recorded history-wise, the fire lance. I'll probably leave a photo up here behind me for the video. That way you guys have a reference point as to what I'm talking about, what this weapon looked like in its early years. But I like military history, always have at least a little bit. Kind of studied a lot of it, World War II and everything, and a little bit before World War II, of course, like American Civil War, the muskets and everything like that. But I never really thought about what the first black powder weapon was until recently. I started thinking about it. I was like, man, what did we use, it'd be about 1,000 years ago, Black powder's been around for a while. It's, developed in China, was used as fireworks and stuff, which was used in warfare as well. Fireworks were like a scare tactic. So it got me thinking, what was the first black powder weapon used in combat? And well, it was developed in China, since they were some of the first people to use black powder, which would make sense. And it was attached, it was like a canister, a little tube that would be attached to the end of your lance. So, you have a lance, big wooden pole, and at the tip of it you have your blade that you would normally use as you thrust it into somebody. So what they did is they would attach this towards the end. Like just as you get just before the blade portion, you'd attach your tube at the end, and it would be stuffed full of gunpowder with a short fuse at the end of it that you would ignite. Probably with like flint and steel. You'd just ignite it real quick and it would light the gunpowder off and have a burst of flames, and a big puff of smoke would come out the end of it as well. Now, this could in theory be used to light people on fire, kind of like a flamethrower, like a very early version of a flamethrower, although couldn't really find anything saying that that's what they used it for. But the weapon first appeared in around 950 in China, but it wouldn't really get used, at least recording-wise. Nobody would record the use of it in battle until the Jinsong Wars in around 1132. The Jinsong Wars, that's a whole nother thing. I can't really briefly go over it in like 30 seconds. It's a mess. But it was two dynasties fighting each other inside of China. That's when it would first kind of be recorded use of it in battle. And it would see use for several centuries. And one of the best uses of this weapon was in China again about 100 years later when the Mongols were invading China. And so the Jin dynasty was still around, at least for a little bit at this point. And they would successfully use this weapon against Mongol invaders. So Mongols relied a lot on cavalry for their attacks. Riding in on horses and flanking people and just taking out the army as quickly as possible using cavalry. So what they did to mess with the horses and mess with the Mongols was you would get a big group of people with these fire lances kind of at the front, facing wherever the cavalry was coming from, and you would ignite all of them at once or in quick succession. And with the amount of noise that these would make, the fire and the smoke would scare horses. So it would make the Mongols very ineffective with their cavalry really quickly. And so these were pretty much just used as a scare tactic at the start of battle, because things didn't really go boom back in the day because nobody had gunpowder. At least nobody really knew how to use it. So this loud noise and the smoke would really disorientate the troops on the battlefield and make it hard to fight after that. So now you got the upper hand, like really quick in the battle. You can start winning within the first stage. Now they would have arrows and stuff stuffed inside these canisters, at least in the first use of them, although they were not very accurate. Can't really find anything saying that a lot of people were killed using the arrows and stuff that they would stuff inside these canisters. And it would get a little bit better as time went on. They would stuff pottery pieces in there, little metal shavings and stuff. Like, so it would basically turn into like a shotgun at one point. Like, because you would just, it would blast just a ton of projectiles everywhere, just a wide spread. It was useful for about 10 feet in front of you, so not what we would see today where you can shoot effectively at 50, 70 yards with a certain shotgun, you know. You'd get about 10 feet of use out of this, which is just enough. It would be just fine to take out your direct enemy, and then you can follow up on the second guy with your lance. Now, the first version of the fire lance, they used bamboo tubes, which could kind of resist one blast, but if you reloaded it and you started firing multiple out of the same tube, you'd probably lose your tube pretty quick. The bamboo, you'd probably get a couple uses out of it, but not a whole lot. They would later make it a metal tube. This would be kind of when it turned into a hand cannon and a lot less fire lance. Because as they got the metal tube on there, they're like, man, we can just constantly reload this thing, pack it full of metal pieces, and keep using it. So that's what they would do. And it would make the lance part of this, the blade, kind of useless. So they would eventually ditch the blade at the end of it, just making it a full-on hand cannon. So this is really kind of the first gun, you could maybe call it, that we have on record. Because they do say that it is recorded to have the first bullet in history ever fired out of it. Now, it could be up to debate. I don't know. I didn't really look into that portion of the history too much. It would make sense since they've been stuffing it with random projectiles for a long time. But, like I said, this thing lasted centuries. Like, the fire lance would have recorded history all the way up into the 17th century. So you got a good about about 700 years of use out of this. And it could have gone longer, but we don't really know too much, because the last recorded use of it, at least in battle, would be the storming of Bristol in Europe during the First English Civil War. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know a whole lot about that Civil War too much. That would have to be a whole nother video, because I'd have to teach myself about it. But it would see use there. And then it would still get issued to European sailors all the way up until 1660. Now, there's no recorded use of it at that point, because like the Battle of Bristol, I believe, was 1635. So it would still get issued after that battle, but there's no recorded use of battle with the fire lance. Now, if you want to, there's a handful of YouTube videos out there. People have replicas of the fire lance that you can find if you want to see one get fired off. Me, personally, I'm not going to do that. It's a little bit of a safety hazard, and I don't think I can fire one of those off in the backyard of my neighborhood. I live in the city, not allowed. But it is very interesting to see one of the first black powder weapons to be used, and a little bit of the history on it. If you guys want me to continue doing the history of black powder weapons, I would love to. Because I don't know a whole lot about when flintlocks became a thing, when cannons became useful on Navy ships. Like, I know about these weapons and how effective they were in battle, but I don't know when they were created and who invented them. Now, this one, I couldn't really pinpoint an inventor on it, but we could follow some of the history in written text. So if you guys want me to continue this and you have suggestions for weapons I can look at later, please put them down in the comments section below. I'm not really looking to do a whole lot modern weaponry. I'd love to keep doing this more ancient stuff to see how things evolve from there. So if you guys have any suggestions, just let me know. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe for more. I do full breakdowns on the weekly of history facts and brief summaries, and then I try to do daily history facts as much as I can. Sometimes not every day. I get a little bit busy. But I'll see you guys later.